Live. Hold on. Thing is,
Good afternoon, everyone.
hold on. There we go. Now we are live on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. Go ahead and start us off, Mr. Trevor.
I just wanted to say good afternoon to everyone and welcome to our podcast. And we can,
I think you're breaking up.
I hope that we share some information that will be beneficial to you somehow. We are not concerned about ourselves, but we are willing to do the best to help others.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the One Moment Podcast.
Absolutely, my brother. Absolutely. All right. And my name is Kevin. And listen, just for clarification purposes, we are not giving any clinical advice on this. I am only licensed and or certified in the state of North Carolina, no other state. So, as Mr. Trevor said, this is the One Moment Podcast. Thank you for joining us. I know we are live across various platforms. Part of our goal is just to, talk about mental health, substance use, suicidal awareness, or bring more awareness to that. A huge stigma continues to, be rampant in the mental health and substance use field, or as it relates to mental health and substance use disorders. And so we consider ourselves more so of a wellness podcast. So thank you all for joining in. We sincerely do appreciate it. And I'm going to pass the torch to Mr. Rubin.
Again, Vernon, this is our third podcast, and I'm looking forward to learning and growing. It's a learning curve, of course, doing a podcast. We're not on the level of Joe Rogan. We hope we get supporters, but it's not about being on that level. It's about spreading the word, and hopefully you'll learn with the audience. I'm glad to be a part of this podcast.
Absolutely. Go to onemoment.chain.box. You will be able to see our link to our podcast site. With that being said, this is all of our social media links. We are on Spotify. We are not live on Spotify just because that is something that we just did last week. So I still want to play with it and if everything worked out. So we do not get paid by anybody. If somebody wants to buy us a coffee, donate, or anything of that sort, the primary two ways is donating via crypto and donating via PayPal. Again, that's only if you want to buy us a coffee just for, giving education to the public. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show you is who sponsors us and or supports us. So, a couple of people. We have W Energy, 10% off of any product they have. Use One Moment. All right. We support them because, again, we are a wellness podcast. They use, as far as their ingredients, this is taken directly off of their website, whole coffee fruit extract, formerly Neurofactor, a patented all-natural ingredient derived from the whole fruit of coffee I cannot pronounce that word, so I'm not even going to try. It enhances the production of a powerful protein in the brain called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. In a clinical study, Neurofactor increased BDNF by 143%. Please visit official site for additional information on ingredients. So going to be the first one again. If anybody wants any, wants to please use One Moment. That's a promo code. You get 10% off of all their products. All right. Second sponsor is going to be Mindfully Me Counseling. She is located out of Texas. All right. Check her out. Her name is Patricia Hernandez. I think she's a LCS or licensed clinical social worker. She's an amazing lady. She's been practicing for several 24 hours. Please check her out. All you have to do is Google Mindfully Me Counseling. And if you're on the website, you can just click one of these pictures to carry her carry you to her website. Schedule definitely if you need some mental health counseling. Schedule an appointment with her. You will be happy over the services that you receive. Our next sponsor, our next sponsor is going to be, or the people that we support is WebHash. WebHash is a Web3 organization. Our website is built off of the WebHash network or the WebHash blockchain. They have an amazing team that if you run into any issues, they are responsive almost immediately. I've been ecstatic with all of their products. So yeah, and you get to tokenize your websites. You get to token and our domain. I'm waiting for them to actually give me the information to post up here. But one of the organizations we support is DNS. DNS is a Web3 um, um, platform. By purchasing a domain through them, you actually turn it into an NFT. So those are the first couple of people. And then, Ruben, tell us about our other sponsor that hosts us every Wednesday.
Oh, the facility is the Healing Place. They're located in Sanford, North Carolina. They provide substance abuse counseling, mental health services as well. We'll be live from there next week, and I can give you more information for us, the telephone number and what have you.
So I think it goes back to Mr. Trev now. What's going on with you this morning, Mr. Trev?
Oh, not a whole lot. I'm just enjoying this wonderful warm day here, trying to keep my dog barking, being a distraction in our topic in our conversation today. But you can't make a dog not bark.
You are right on that one. You cannot make a dog not bark. Yeah,
You can get
that is absolutely true.
you can get a bark that much.
Do what?
A Yorkie Terrier, you can get one of those, and if they bark, it's not very loud.
Listen, if I get me a dog, I want a Doberman Pinscher or a German Shepherd or a Pit Bull or something of that sort. One of those three breeds, I think I'll be happy with.
Not a Yorkie Terrier, right?
Not a Yorkie Terrier. You are absolutely right. So, tell us, Mr. Trev, what's going on with the what are we talking about today?
Today,
Bring it to us.
we're going to be discussing a topic of suffering transmuted and or transmuted suffering. It is uh, a lot of you. And we define that as definitive upon a variety of different.
I think you're breaking up over there.
I'm sorry. That's
Heard that loud and clear.
that's usually the two ways that suffering is transmuted. There are two ways: physically doing it or mentally doing it. And 90% of the way of suffering transmuted, being transmuted, is 90 the mental or emotional state that you could be in.
Yeah, you were breaking up.
I think there's a lot of conditions that seem to involve a lot of emotional. You could be angry or afraid, or you could not really like something to a strong extent. You could be jealous over something, or you're insecure about something, or you're anxious. A lot of emotional involvement there, and that's why they classify it as being 90% mentally, and the other 10% could be a physical suffering thing that you could be in severe pain. It could be a hunger issue. You could feel isolated, and that's another topic that we discussed. Yeah, we tend to place where we're not able or conditioned to allow ourselves to accept something that doesn't seem to be on our terms. So if we could break out the discussion to start with, what other ways do you guys think could be ways of getting through or having to acclimate to the idea that you're in a condition of trans? What
Hey,
I'm gonna let Ruben go first on that one.
well, that's what I was going to ask Kevin. Since you're working on your doctorate, not saying that I don't understand the concepts, but I thought you could expound on that topic. What made Trevor? What made you pick that topic? I think it's a great topic. Talk about emotions and what have you. Oftentimes, we as men we're socialized not to talk about emotions. So when you have three guys talking about pain and suffering, how that affects us, I think that's important. I think being a counselor or a therapist, I see that oftentimes with a lot of patients, who are going through mental suffering, and
Mm.
uh, oftentimes they say that's why they turn to drug use, whatever reason, then they become addicted. So I think working through that, and you said that the name of that is transmuted. What?
suffering?
Transmuted.
Yeah, the title of the portion that I read was "Suffering Transmuted." But
Yes.
you can transpose the words either way, but it's
Hmm.
the same exact thing. So
I think that's a topic that probably needs to be discussed because a lot of people are suffering. Whether it's, you mentioned about mental, physical, and whatever. I believe, especially as one ages, learning to deal with pain and suffering. A lot of times when you're older, you start hitting your 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm 68. My grandmother once told me she lived to be about 90, and she outlived two husbands, outlived most of her siblings. And she used to tell me that aging is great, it's a blessing, it deserves gratitude. But unfortunately, if you live to like 90, unfortunately, you're going to lose spouses and siblings and what have you. And that causes some emotional pain, and she learned to deal with it through spirituality, her belief in God and her church. I think finding ways to deal with that is important.
But I also think that is equally important to understand what can be suffering or what can cause a pain and all that. Because, you know, I love what you said, Trev, earlier because you made the comment that, and I'm gonna paraphrase or I'm gonna use a different phrase here, right? But you mentioned that pain and suffering is subjective, right? Hmm. One of the reasons I am a true believer of that is because anybody can go through a hurricane, right, or experience a hurricane. And not everybody is going to experience post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic stress symptoms, or even acute stress syndrome or acute stress at all, right? It might be more on a mild level for or non-existent for many people. Others, they might have some PTSD, right? Some PTSD symptoms or some acute stress disorder symptoms. So, you know, as a practitioner in the field of mental health, I am keenly aware that what affects one person in one way, that same event might not affect another person in the same way. And that's been my experience across the board with, a lot of people that I work at, especially those who have a history of trauma in their background, whether it be through childhood, adolescence, or even, during their adulthood. And so learning to, take one's suffering, and it could be again due to trauma or, you know, even through, maybe it's related to turning somebody recovery story, right? Their experiences in active addiction, turning that into a, positive experience, almost like I think 12-step program calls it 12-step facilitation.
I understand that, and the biggest reason why it became uh, us was because one of the originators of one of the 12-step programs that are available had difficulty in his first years of getting through his recovery. And the only way that he was able to keep out of his addiction, help establish the actual first 12-step program, was the idea he had to work with other people and transmute the suffering that he was going through to be able to succeed the conquering of it. That he wouldn't have even ever established group number one. And that's pretty important. That was a big changing thing for me to select the topic, because I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's totally got to be a kind of a spiritual thing. And that involves a whole nother aspect of the program that's very important to be able to continue through it. But to be able to begin the actual group number one, wow, that just overwhelmed me. To be able to be successful in any kind of program that you're involved in, you have to have the acceptance and the responsibility of being able to transmute the suffering that you're going under and through, to be able to maybe someone else to step up and realize they have to take work, however extensive that work might be. They have to work through it in a positive way to succeed. And that's the basis of most of these programs, is the idea of working with others.
Mm.
And that involves a lot more things. Something that we discussed in our first episode about trust. There's a lot of trusting issues going on there. And if you share your suffering through a group, that else possibly the strength that they need to step up and be like, hey, I've really got to do something about this. Otherwise, I'm circle back
Hmm.
to the same things that I've always circled to. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you got. And if you change that, then you have to be able to realize that if you're going to help anyone else, you you got to help yourself if you can help anyone else, or able to help anyone else as well. So
I think that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. I think as a counselor for over 25 years, I remember at one point one of the best directors I had in New York was saying that, you know, it's important for a therapist or a counselor as well to get in some type of therapy, you know, to have that experience, to be on the other side of that couch, or if you want to use that word. But it's important, I think, to experience that. And I did counseling or therapy. I saw a private therapist about a year. It was a positive experience. I think it allows you to see the importance of, helping others, and to look at those. I know a lot of those terms she used, those concepts she used, you know, that I used a lot of times just daily, working with people who are addicted to drugs as well. So I think that's important. You mentioned group. I think oftentimes when people who are substance dependent, there's trust issues. And I know a lot of patients who I see, they say, I don't want to do group. I don't feel comfortable for us talking about my problems and what in front of a group. And we try to encourage them to do that, because I feel like I enjoy doing groups, but I feel like both components of counseling is important, individual and group. But I think group provides the opportunity once they go through the stages of the group and they're in the group for a while, they get an opportunity to see like the progress that they develop those bonds, trust, and what have you. That addiction, being an active addiction, doesn't provide. They learn to trust. They learn altruism, caring about another. I think when you do a group for a while, I can tell when it's going great when I'm doing less talking and the group is actually interacting as opposed to focus on the counselor to like facilitate the group throughout. So I think when it's organic and they start developing trust and caring about each other, those traits that are important in relationships in dealing with stress and dealing with pain and what have you, being able to reach out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you're.
I was going to say that's a good point because the individualism part of it is only strengthened by being able to relate to others in their typical succession of going through and how they're doing it. So it's positivity to receive positivity, and you have to keep the concept of something as good is going to come out of this
Yeah.
involved in it in the first place.
Well, no, I think you both mentioned great things, but and there's no but, right? I think it's also too important to remember that Ruben said something earlier when he mentioned something about the importance of emotions, right? And that's the neat thing about being inside of a social support group, clinical therapy group, or something like that. I've worked with many folks in the field, and they are just deathly afraid of their emotions, right? And they might use to cover up their feeling, right? Or they might engage in do certain things, whatever their behavioral choices are, to help them not feel what they're feeling, right? And I always help people to understand that, hey, our emotions are absolutely 100% normal. Whether it's I know some people say that there's only seven universal emotions. Some people say there might be eight. Some people might say there's 12, 24, what have you. Uh, Regardless of which theory you follow, regardless of that, those emotions, shame, guilt, happiness, content, jealousy, contempt, fear, anger, right, and what have you, every one of them are natural for us to be able to experience.
Hmm.
And the same thing with any type of thought processes, right, that we might have. If we're happy, right, we might think, wow, this is amazing, right? Like if, I know I've been knowing you for a while, Ruben, so, you share a lot about your children and your grandchildren and your family. And every time somebody, does something or they graduate or they achieve something, you are happy, you're ecstatic, right? And so
Hmm.
your associated thoughts with that emotion is 100% normal, right? And
Hmm.
so even with the same thing with jealousy, contempt, right? Anger, fear, all of those things, any thoughts that we have that's related to that, to whatever specific emotion that we're experiencing, absolutely normal. That's where group therapy or any type of support group can come into play at. I know for me, early on, man, like I ran from emotions. I hated emotions. I didn't want anything to do with it. But now, like, that's one of my primary go-tos from a clinical perspective. I help people understand emotions. I help people, tap into their emotions, and you know, but more importantly, that's where the peer support comes into, right? The peer network. They're the people in the group, because they get to. I think you said it, Trevor. There's a piece of there's a sense of identity with somebody else, right?
That is
And that identification helps to solidify maybe a feeling of self acceptance.
that's true. That stands up on the shoulders of the mechanics of why the suffering be transmuted. And those are feelings that, like, your thinking part of it says that everything's okay, everything's in order, as how it should be. And that sometimes can be a lost perspective on how you think or feel, because your emotions or your thinking process within you, which is your brain and your head, determines your own personal experience. Your mind is really not uh, yours specifically, because what you do is seem to allow to let the world and or civilization or society uh, dump it into your garbage bin. You got to remember, if you allow uh, anyone and everyone who is interacting with you, they can put stuff into your head that you maybe don't really know how to correlate. I understand what I'm getting at.
Definitely. That's why I say you have to be careful with social media. I think social media is great. I enjoyed it. I fought for years not to be on social media, on Facebook. I remember when I moved from New York in 2012 and I moved here, I didn't get on Facebook until like 2016. A coworker of mine said, "Give me your phone, Ruben." And she said, "Let me put you on Facebook." So she set me up an account. And it gave me the opportunity to like communicate with people who I left behind. I had close relationships in New York, even people in North Carolina, other cities like Florida. It allows that. But I think that I'm glad the social media wasn't around when I was going through my teens and what have you, because I think with social media amplifies it. I hear some young people talking about, well, I only got 10 likes today, and that saddens me when a person builds their confidence on how many likes they get. And I think I always say, and that's the beauty. And you have to do the work though. But that's the beauty, I'll say, of growing old. I say as much as I know that I have probably uh well more years behind me than ahead. People say, "Would you want to be young again?" I say, if I have the knowledge I do now, I probably would enjoy it. But I think this part of my life and being at this age, I think I have more gratitude. I have more confidence. It's not, I had to do the work. I'm on social media. I don't get upset if I only get 10 likes because I know what's important. Close friends, family, those things like Kevin mentioned. When my granddaughter graduates, so she's an entrepreneur and she has a cosmetic line, and I love posting stuff about her. I think those things are important. I think social media is great, but it can also dismantle a person's self-esteem. Definitely, yeah. So
Yeah, I hear you on that one.
mhm.
I actually started my first Facebook account in 2007, and I think that was sometime around when the Facebook thing first came out. And I got up to a point where I had like 1,500 people. I didn't know every, but I heard my friends, and eventually the interaction with them. I'm talking. I had elementary school friends, middle school friends, high school friends, work friends, but eventually the interaction with them seemed to to be diminished because they developed new technology where you can just add an emoji. So it's kind of
Right.
a lessening of interaction. Drew me completely all the way out of Facebook, into where recently I'm back back on board and
Yes.
just sharing the positive things that I can with, instead of just
Hmm.
my opinion on this or my opinion on that, because I was doing the thing, transmuting my suffering onto others and expecting them to envelop the same ideas that I had. And that's
Yes.
not really a social thing. That's kind of an anti thing. And I didn't realize that I was actually living it or doing it. So yeah, what you allow to be placed into your head in your interactions with others is critical to level out your per se garbage bin of what you want to have brought in here. I just like that the idea or the concept that when you think your mind is really yours, you're allowing the rest of the world to put into it for you to believe or think of a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's uh, that as y'all were talking about social media influences and group influences, I pulled this up right here just just for a quick reference for anybody, not just ourselves but also for uh, the audience. And it says that social media can benefit us in various ways, such as transforming communication, bridging demographic gaps, fostering global friendships. It allows individuals to share news and events in real time, enhancing the speed and reach of information dissemination. However, the democratization of information also fuels the spread of misinformation and fake news, making it increasingly challenging to discern reliable sources. And it also has an impact on mental health. It can lead to feelings of inadequacy, self comparison, contributing to increased anxiety and depression. Excessive use of social media has been linked to a decline in overall mental health, highlighting the need for individuals to practice self care and set boundaries. And so when I look at what both of you were, I was listening to what both of you were just saying, and you both mentioned great great concepts that I feel like is not really talked about a lot. And it is losing our identity in favor of, something else or somebody else. Now, I think somebody said, lowered self-esteem. And so I think that's important to recognize the importance of those group and social influences on our lives because, you know, if I'm living for the group, right, and this has just been my experience,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm living, to please the group, I don't really know who I am. I don't really have an idea of me, but once, and let me do preface this too. That was every decision I made was based on what somebody else said. Everything I did in my life for 22 years was just absolutely based on other people's ideas, not any of my own. And yeah, it was learning when I made different decisions at the age of 22 do life differently. I started standing up for myself. I started advocating for myself, right? And over time, I learned that I could take my past experiences, as the topic says, transmuted suffering, right? Been able to use that in a positive light here and help numerous people out to the best of my ability. At least I hope some people out. So yeah, I think transmuted suffering is not just in the on the individual level, but I think it's factored into the social pieces of us too.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned like self care. So with use that word transmuted suffering, you know, not to talk about the negative aspects of it. How do we? I don't say we can't overcome that because those are our emotions. How do we practice self care in dealing with that? I know that I often say with patients, there's emotions are you know, emotions. They are emotions, and basically, they are not bad emotions or good emotions. It's learning, to deal with those emotions as opposed to numbing that pain. That's what oftentimes with addiction comes in. People learn to numb that pain, and I think one of the things we talk about in groups oftentimes is sharing. They say you're only as sick as your secret. So, feeling comfortable at some point to share your emotions, to share those feelings and what have you, develop that trust, and that can take a while in groups. Oftentimes, definitely takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight, but I've seen it happen where people come in the group and they say, "I'm not going to talk. I'm just here for my probation officer." And over time, as the group goes through the processes and forms that bond, and when somebody's missing, they want to know, they show they care about them. So, and, sharing that, I think that's where the therapeutic value comes in. Sharing that emotions, and you identify knowing that other people feel that way. I always say emotions aren't good or bad. They're like you said, they're subjective. And we should allow ourselves to experience them. And it can be painful. For a while when I first moved here, I think I shared with Kevin, when I first moved here in 2012, I had lived in New York for 40 years and I was so excited about returning to my home state of North Carolina. I was so excited getting a new job and everything. And when I moved here, my wife says, Ruben, you probably were more in love with the idea of moving back to North Carolina as opposed to actually the reality. I didn't move to a place where, like in my hometown of Salisbury, I moved to another town. I moved to a new job. It took a while for me to transition, to the job. At the time, I wasn't techno savvy, and I'm still learning. There was a time when I first started, I could only type maybe 20 words a minute. I could probably type about 80 now. I had to. I went a lot of times. I said I'm going to quit the job. I went to the director and say I'm going to quit, and she says, "No, Ruben, just give yourself 6 months, please. I'm not going to accept your resignation." I was planning on moving back to New York, and I think over time, what I'm getting at, there was a time when I felt depression. I would come home and just wouldn't hardly eat. I probably lost about 30 pounds. And I'll share this. I'm not ashamed of it. Then eventually I went to a doctor and got on medication, and they put me on medication for a while. I took about 6 months. And that allowed me, with working on that anxiety, I had a good director, and I still do at the time, who say, Ruben, you know what? You have 20 plus years of experience as a counselor when you moved here. That's something that I can't teach, but you'll learn a computer and you'll increase your skills in that area. And I did. So when I'm saying I had to learn to work through that anxiety, I had to learn to deal with the depression. And I'm glad I experienced that, because when I get a patient who's depressed or what have you, I can say I've experienced that type of mine lasted about 6 months. It started alleviating over the time, but now I'm at a place. I've been here 12 years now. I hated the job. Now I love it. I mean, I really love it. I love the people. I love the job and everything. I feel more comfortable with technology and stuff. And Kevin and all the friends, they helping me with that technology. So I'm learning. So I think you have to learn to deal with emotions, what I'm getting at, and do the work and overcome that anxiety.
Well, and I'm gonna let Trev speak here in a moment, but I just have to say this. Ruben, you can get better at typing on the computer. All right. You can work on your depression. You can do all of those things, right? You can improve your health. But here's the funny part about it, right? You
What's
will
that?
never be a Southerner. You will always be a New Yorker. And there's not,
I lived in New York 40 years, but I'm originally from North Carolina. And I tell
Ruben,
my family, no, I'm a Southern. They say, no, Ruben, your attitudes, your accent, your behavior, your thinking, sometimes you could be aggressive. You lost that Southern charm. I said, no, I still have that.
no, you don't have that Southern charm. You know how many times you hang up the phone on me when you're mad? But anyways, go ahead. I ain't even gonna let you respond to that. Mr. Trev, go ahead.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Here's a little interest you in on that. I was actually born in New Jersey, so I claim that I am an actual blue blood. Now, I was raised, I only lived there for a year. My parents moved back to where they were from in Michigan. Then, when I was about 28, I moved to the real LA, lower Alabama. And so,
Okay. The real
yeah, real LA. The reference earlier about hurricanes, and I actually survived a hurricane there, Hurricane Ivan. I'm telling you, there was a lot of suffering that I was able to transmute through that, but I developed a relationship with my higher power like you could not even begin to imagine. How
Yes.
was going through Hurricane Ivan. Anyhow, I'm just saying that I was a blue blood GD Yankee. I had blue blood that's born in Jersey, raised in the Midwest breadbasket, and then transplanted down into lower Alabama. Now I live out in the West in Colorado.
Yes.
Now I'm nationwide. Can you believe that?
Sure.
It's really interesting that the suffering you go through wherever you're at. You have
Hmm.
you have to get through the delusion that everything is always going to be okay.
No.
Not always okay, and you have to have some way to get through that with having the mindfulness of understanding your body and your mind, because those are the two sources of the suffering. Remember, that was the first thing that we discussed: physical suffering and mental suffering. You have to be aware of
Hmm.
your body and your mind and establish proper space to begin to end the suffering that you're under through. Some of the causes of those could be greed, hatred, like I said, delusion. You could be delusioned into some kind of thinking that you developed from when you were a kid, or the relationships that you had with people that you were involved with. All these actions that come in progression through your experience in life, and you accept them as being okay to do, but yet they're learned behaviors that a lot of the things that you're uh, complicit to don't really help you to behave properly and a good mental health state of mind.
Hmm.
It's the opposite of getting your mind still, or you have to get behind that part of it so that you can, instead of just having a still mind, accepting everything that you've learned, you have to be open to a new type of thinking.
Yes.
So yeah, the watching thing, you have to create distance and have a still mind by controlling it, in the sense that you have to control your stilled mind and focus
Yeah.
on things that are positive to help others, instead of sucking in what the world exposes you to, and you thinking this way or you thinking that way. It's
Hmm.
a very complicated process of suffering, and it can be transmitted a lot of different ways, because as as unlimited as our minds were created, we have a vast amount of emotions to experience, and they cannot be necessarily described as just a certain uh, limit of them that are normal. The human mind is just an amazing thing that sometimes you think you're acting right, and the rest of everybody is like looking at you going, "Oh, you're not acting right." And there can be lots of severe consequences of that. There's You have to either watch what you are doing or try to control it in a positive manner, and that's
No.
the part I was trying to get. So, yeah, it was an amazing thing to go through Hurricane Ivan intensely. With great that you brought that up, because the hurricane of life gone through in a proper mindset. I just only know that my higher power has a higher purpose and better purpose for me than I have even discovered yet. And I'm
Hmm.
halfway to 106.
So real quick for our audience, and then Ruben, I'll let you pick up. Just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors again. Dubby Energy. All right, 10% off of their products. Use promo code One Moment.
So where
Okay.
was where you couldn't pronounce? I'm a good linguistic
Well,
type.
yeah, Dubby or Doobie, however I pronounce it, Dubby.
Not Doobie, it's Dubby.
Yeah, no. Listen, let's get our mind on the straight and narrow here. We're trying to help the audience, Trev. Nah, and then
To be
again,
organic too. We stick to the topic, but I think I always think the interaction, how the host and
right?
interact is important.
Nah, right. You are right on that one. Then again, I just want to reiterate, mindfully me counseling in the state of Texas. Miss Patricia Hernandez. If you go to our website and you go to our sponsors and partners page, you will see her at the bottom. If you click on one of these two pictures or both of them, either or, it will take you to her website. Definitely, if you are looking for any type of mental health, substance use counseling, definitely would encourage you to schedule an appointment with her. She only practices in the state of counseling. And real quickly, please, Ruben, before you get to what you're going to say, who is our next sponsor?
It's called the Healing Place, and that's in Sanford, North Carolina. Director and she used to work here, and it's an awesome person. They offer very compassionate, professional care. I think they do a lot for the community, the underserved. I think they provide a lot of products for women and what have you, like hygiene products and what have you, in addition to counseling and therapy and what have you. And I think they accept a lot of insurances as well. And we'll be there next week, and I can actually get the flyer and provide you with more information because they're great in allowing us to actually have a place to be there and do this podcast. Right now, I'm in a separate place than the rest of the people.
No, no. Yeah, so please support our sponsors. Either you can support us by donating if you cannot donate via crypto or PayPal. And like I say, it's only buying us a coffee that we are saying if you donate directly to us. Um, you can't do that. You can always support our sponsors and partners. Again, please, Dubby. Then we have Mindfully Me Counseling, and we also have the Healing Place located in Sanford.
And, we were talking about I think attitudes, and uh, uh, Trevor mentioned about he used the word garbage in, garbage out, but I think that all that's important. I'm a believer. I don't think if you just go through life thinking positive, everything's going to be grand. But I think research shows people who have a positive attitude towards life are more likely to live longer, have less diseases, learn how to handle stress, happier relationship. I was looking at some quotes from different people, and Charles Swindoll, one of the
Mm.
things he said, the pursuit of happiness is a matter of choice. It is a positive attitude we choose to express. It is not a gift delivered to our door each morning, nor does it come through the window. And it is certain that our circumstances are not the things that make us joyful. If we wait for them to get just right, we will never laugh again. I think that's important. I always say happiness is a choice, and it could be a challenge to be. Thankfully, I try to have a positive attitude and post about positive things. But at the same time, people say, "Well, Ruben, you always seem happy." I've undergone health challenges. Thankfully, God has blessed me to overcome them. I'll share. I had about 4 years ago. I had an aneurysm, aortic aneurysm. Luckily, it didn't rupture. If it had a rupture, I probably wouldn't be here sitting talking to you. They went in and repaired that. I have hip replacement surgery. I had surgery on my neck. My coworker said, "Ruben, I said, I'm happy. I'm almost bionic. So I'm almost indestructible." So I look at it as positive. You have to think positive. In spite of all those things, I am thankful. Like I said earlier, I don't know the average lifespan is 70 something. I'm blessed each day to live, and I enjoy it. I appreciate it. I know that my time is limited for as what's ahead of me as opposed to behind me. But at the same time, I think you have to have I think gratitude and choosing happiness is important. And it's hard to people say, "Well, how do you choose happiness when you feeling pain all the time or what have you?" I got a neighbor, 95 years old, that lives next door to me. And I enjoy sitting and talking to her because learning just her experiences. And she's 95. She's active. She still volunteers at the hospital across the street from where I work once a week. She still drives locally, and she just has a pleasant attitude. And I go on check on her once a week, and I just love sitting down and having coffee with her, and just people absorbing that knowledge because yeah, I want to live to 95 or 100. I would like to have her attitude and her, and I think ultimately that's up to God. I know whatever we do, we can practice self care and take care of ourselves and all, and eat right and exercise. But I know ultimate is up to God. I believe that. So I think, but yeah, uh, having that, I think you have to choose happiness. You don't just wake up and say, I think that sometimes that's hard. Around the office, people tell you I whistle a lot, and all the patients say, "That's Ruben." They can tell by my whistle, and I inherited from my grandfather. He used to whistle, and it used to be annoying. But I think when you're smiling or when you're whistling, it's hard to be unhappy. So I think sometimes you have to act as if practice happiness. When I whistle, it just puts me in a good mood. Definitely, especially when my wife's arguing. I mean, just whistle. It puts me in a good mood. Hello?
Look, dude. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I was trying to find the unmute, but you lost me at the end. You lost me at the end. And then Trevor came back on, so both of you
Oh,
just
you muted
lost
me.
me.
You muted me.
No. I was talking about me. I was trying to find the unmute button because,
Okay.
oh my God, because you said especially. Look, I was sidetracked because as you were saying that, the part I'm fixing to say, Mr. Trev had turned his camera back on, right? So I was sidetracked on trying to figure out, anyways, you had made the comment. All of this happened at the same time. So your comment was, well, I'm a whistler, and especially at the house when my wife starts getting on to me, I just whistle.
Not real. Not really.
I
I have
know,
to listen.
I know.
Definitely have to
No,
listen.
well,
Been
I just
married
wanted to.
45 years, coming soon, and I have to listen. Definitely. So I
Well,
just
you
made
better
that.
listen because you got two people in your life you better listen to. One of
Who's
them is your
that?
wife. The second person is me because you know me. I will listen. Do not start with me, Ruben. I will. Yeah, I love you, dude. I love you, dude.
I'm gonna say about this young man, and I get to know Trevor as well. I said this. Kevin came to work with us, the clinic where I'm working at now, in 2019, and I just assumed, okay, he's young, he's a good kid, he's gonna make a good therapist. I had no intentions of becoming a good friend of his. He calls me his brother, and I feel the same way. I just said, first of all, he's 30 plus years younger than me. We might have different views about certain things. That's why I get mad and hang up on him. I'll try to get him to come over to my viewpoint, but I found Kevin as a really down to earth person, and we really hit it off. Even after he left the clinic, we stay in touch. I don't see him as often, but you know, he stays in touch. So he's a good hearted person. I think I always tell my wife says, Ruben, you got a friend like that where I think if something happened to you 20 or 30 years from now, I say he would come to the nursing home and visit me and bring me ice cream. He's that
Look,
type of person to do that.
this is how it's going to end up being, and then I'm gonna let Trevor talk, okay? Because I know
Okay.
Trevor's got some stuff he's got to say. But I can see us doing this podcast, okay, 30 years from now. I'm gonna have to be rolling both of you in the wheelchair inside the building. Like that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Drew.
Okay, Trey. I'm not talking anymore. I'm done.
To stay on point or focused on our topic here, if it's okay, I'm going to turn my camera back off and read something really quick, but it'll help kind of give more of a base of information for people to use. And this is it. Suffering has an alchemical purpose. It strengthens the psychological container which is necessary for the evolution of human consciousness. A robust, well-developed psyche is akin to a essential for tolerating the heat of spiritual transformation without overwhelming the psychic structure. A weak, underdeveloped psyche is like a paper cup. Exposure to divine energy before one is ready to transform can distort and collapse the psyche, leading to the development of complex psychological adaptations such as psychosis, schizophrenia, bipolar, or a God complex. Suffering ends, or the transmutation ends, when the psyche is sufficiently developed and has learned how to transmute dense, sluggish, automatic states of being into free flowing, vital sattvic. When this movement of transmutation is embodied, harmony becomes the norm, and the psyche naturally evolves itself to a more elevated state of personal consciousness. So essentially what I'm trying to say here is that there's so much involving the mental aspect of this that it
Hmm.
doesn't matter what you are, it doesn't matter what your social status is, it doesn't matter what possessions you have, it doesn't matter of all the worldly things. If your spirit is in a sense or a state of an emotional response to whatever the situation is or the knowledge that you're getting or allowing in, that you have the uh, you have the possibility, that's what I was trying to say, of going in a negative direction. Now, however you allow yourself to be in a mental good state, especially if you concede to the idea of the willingness to be able to share with other people what you're going through, then you're going to remain in that negative state. And you don't want that because it can disrupt your life to follow the entirety of your entire existence. So this is really a critical thing in the sense that you have to be able to transmute through the suffering. You're going through it, you understand it, you don't know why, but you still have to grab onto the openness and the willingness to realize that you need to help other people. That's much the gist.
Yeah,
Sure.
and I think, when we talk about getting over and growing, our suffering, this is on, I just pulled this information up on Medium. They're talking about a lot of things. Ruben and you both have shared on several of these things, but some of those is, we've already talked about under, feeling our emotions, accepting our emotions as is. Another thing we can do is challenging our own thought processes. I know a lot of, when I'm in individual therapy, sometimes when I'm in group, when I'm holding a group, I will have a individual try to challenge me, or if they don't try to challenge me, they will, I can sense some type of, you know, clinical, you know, in other words, they are stuck psychologically in whatever situation they might be stuck in, or they're making irrational decisions. And so I use a Socratic questioning and start challenging their thought processes and their behaviors. And so that's another thing though that for me helps me is challenging thoughts and challenging our behaviors, because it really makes me think about what it is I'm doing, and then take steps to meet our actual needs. Somebody said it earlier, Trev, it might have been you, but self care is the best care. When I worked in Durham, I had a nurse of mine. She said, she always told us every day, self care is the best care. And I absolutely 100% believe that. And I've even used this as a challenge, right? When I'm in group, patients will literally, almost every patient will raise their hand when I ask them, how often do we practice self care? Or how often do we neglect ourselves and not take care of ourselves? And every hand will raise in the group. So then I'll ask them, say, well, since I work 12-hour shifts, do you want me to go home tonight at the end of my shift and get 2 hours of sleep and come back tomorrow? And and it helps them to understand the concept of self care, because I have to take care of me, right? I have to take care of my needs, and so by doing these things, I'm able to help transform some of my pain, some of my experiences, negative my negative experiences into growth, or opportunities of growth. I'm gonna end with this, Mr. Trevor, or Ruben, whichever one of y'all want to pick it up. I got a mentor of mine that says, he says something about, today I don't have problems. I have opportunities of growth.
That's a good point. That's definitely a good point. And I'll say something. I'll let Pastor Wanda to torch to Trevor. I remember a clinical supervisor that I had a few years ago was saying this, and I agree with it. She was saying that, those messages that we hear as children that we might hear from our parents is like, you're no good, you never amount to nothing. All those messages, from Trevor mentioned from those messages, those outside messages that we hear constantly, they have an impact on us. But I think the beauty of it is that as we grow and venture out on our own, and we can not erase those negative messages, but she was saying that you can replace those negative messages with positive self-talk and what have you. And I believe that, we talk about having positive, I tell patients about positive affirmations. It might sound corny, but over time, if you continuously repeat those, internalize those, they do promote change. I think there's something positive about thinking. I don't think thoughts are just innate or just random. I think our thoughts do have an impact on how things turn out in our life. I know for me personally, when I started believing in myself and wanted to go back to school and what have you, and when I turned 40, becoming a counselor, I know there were negative messages from other people say, you can't do this or you can't do that. But I think once opportunity knocks and you start changing your thinking and thinking positive, I just think sounds far out there, but the universe is gives an abundance, and the universe has a lot to harvest. That's why I say, as you learn it in life, you don't have to compete with. I don't have to compete with my next door neighbor. I think that the universe does provide, but it only provides the people who uh, know how to ask the question, know how to receive. And I'm done. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Ruben, for saying that.
Hmm.
And that just kind of helps me to confirm to anyone out there that if you're in this universe, you're in the human condition. It's the only condition that's in the universe, and it's a pretty big place. Lots of planets, lots of other things, but we don't know anything about the rest of it except this one that we're in. Um, and on the point of understanding or realization, we all know and understand that life is a very chaotic place. It's full of pain, it's full of fear, it's full of injustice all over the place. It doesn't matter where you live at in the world, it's here. We have to deal with it somehow. How can we figure out what we can do? We got to transmutate the suffering condition that we're going through so that we can help someone else go through it. And what does that do? That helps change the world somehow in a positive way. You have to change yourself to be able to adjust to the chaotic state that we're constantly in. So to summarize in a big way, I'm just going to say that in despite of the dismay, the fear, the defeat, the failure, humiliation, you have to question, are you going to be the fighter? Are you going to be able to adapt and adjust to the environment that you're in, no matter what it's throwing at you, and consistently do your very best to improve yourself or other people every day? Or are you just going to stay in what the funk that you're in? That's kind of a 70s thing, funky. So you don't want to get too funky in the world because it will really funk you up.
Well, I think it's important to remember that because we talk about growth and change. A lot of people can knock evolutionary theory, including Charles Darwin. For me, though, I actually believe in a big portion of evolutionary theory, and one of the reasons I do believe in part of that, because Charles Darwin really the parts that I take from Charles Darwin from a clinical perspective, right, or professional and personal perspective, when he said that we have to continue It's about survival of the fittest, where creatures adapt or they don't survive. And so for me, when I think about what you were just saying, Trev, and overcoming our pain, our suffering, I think about what Darwin said, and the way I typically help, the way I practice it myself, and even clinically, and help my clients, practice it, in their personal life is understanding the idea that we have to continue to adapt. The world is ever evolving. We have to continue to adapt to an ever changing world.
Yes, we do. It's a constant state of learning and adapting our characteristics in a positive manner. Simply,
Okay, and on that note, we're gonna close out because I have a routine and practice self care. I eat dinner around about 4:30. If I'm not home, my wife gets upset. So we're gonna
we don't
close out.
don't
Ruben, Ruben, let me tell you something. All right, listen, somebody you need to be worried about is not your wife, but it's KO, brother. Let me tell you, okay?
Yeah, right.
You
You
already
never
know
give me
how,
a home to sleep in at night, a bed to sleep in at night, are you?
brother. Mi casa, su casa. Mi casa, su casa. I love you,
Okay.
brother.
Thank you, brother.
So, listen, let's close it out with our a message to our sponsors again. We have, let me find it. What I'm looking for,
definitely W.
not Doobie, but Dubby, right?
Dubby.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
Dubby. Yep, Dubby Energy. Listen, buy their product. If you drink energy drinks, listen, I don't drink any of the other energy drinks just because I had a negative experience, a real bad experience, a very bad jitterness, all of that. Completely, yeah, I had a negative experience with that. Dubby, however, does not do that. 10% off their products when you use the code one moment. Again, if you are in the state of Texas and you're looking for mental health substance use therapy, please contact Mindfully Me Counseling, Miss Patricia Hernandez. She is an amazing lady, an amazing clinician. Known her for a little bit, for quite a few years now, and he is again awesome. And then to wrap it up with our last and final sponsor at this moment, go ahead, Mr. Burden.
Oh, the other sponsor is a healing place located in Sanford, North Carolina. And it's a great facility. I'll give you more information on next week. And also, I'll put I'll post my business card. As I said, I'm what you call a SAP. That what they mean by substance abuse professional for the DOT. That means I'm registered with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So if a person who's a DOT worker needs, and they happen to have a positive drug screen, and their employer requires at that point to see a substance abuse professional, I can do an assessment and also do the referral. So you can always look me up. I'm located on the clearinghouse. I'm also on the list called SAP list. So just look me up, and I'll be posting that. So I have a business called Live and Thrive, and I also provide. I hope to be certified as a life coach soon, within another 6 months. So I want to, help the community and what have you. So that's it.
Absolutely. Last but not least, the one organization we support. Actually, we got a couple of them. I'm waiting for them to give me the sign to throw on the website. But WebHash is an amazing organization. In the beginning, when we were building these websites, what, 7, 8 months ago now, folks, we went through 3DNS. Okay, again, 3DNS is where we purchased the domain from, and WebHash is who we built. We used their platform to build the website. Both of those organizations we support. They are decentralized organizations or Web3. They are put on the blockchain. They are phenomenal. Again, 3DNS and WebHash. All right. If you see this, if you Google WebHash and you see this little colorful sign right here, that is the correct website. Okay. Do not get scammed. This is the web. right here. And if you go to our website and you click on this little sign right there, it'll take you to web hash website. Okay. Now, that being said, I am good to go on my end. Folks, this is always a pleasure to see y'all. It's always a pleasure to bring the message. Peace and love as always.
Thanks, guys. You have a blessed day.
Hold on.